the first lunch and learn of this semester. We have, I believe, a very exciting topic for this semester. We're really leaning into humanity. So we have all these technology infused things happening in our classrooms, whether we're face-to-face, hybrid, or online, totally. We're using more technology in our classrooms. Our students are using it more in the careers that they're going into. So we're trying to capture that sense of humanity that we can still keep our connections inside of our courses. So some of the way that we're doing that is through our conversations this semester. So we'll go ahead, and I have a question for you to start with. Technology is powerful, but the human presence gives it meaning. And I had said, ChatGPT, help me come up with something more creative to say than just saying, so what do you think about this? How's it make you feel? And it said, what wild webs of connection does this sentence spin for you? But really, please go ahead and type in the chat or feel free to unmute. Let me know, what does this make you feel like? Or what does this make you think? Technology is powerful, but the human presence gives it meaning. It's up to us to apply it and decide how to use it. Absolutely, because it's there, but we get to decide what we do with it. Technology wouldn't exist without the humans to create it. Exactly. We don't need to do this chicken or the egg thing. We know exactly where it came from. And without humanity, technology doesn't have a purpose. Again, we created this to try to use it. A lot of these technological advances we have had come out of ways to accommodate individuals who had disabilities, by the way. So those were a lot of those seeds of origination for the innovations that we have now. And technology makes our lives easier, but humans aren't replaceable. Technology helped me spell replaceable correctly, but it was Christina's thought. Absolutely. And not even sure that technology makes life easier, just different. Exactly. It kind of depends on what we're thinking about, how we're using it. I mean, the calculator was a huge piece of technology that back in the day when it came out, teachers were up in arms. We don't want anyone to use the calculator because we want them to all be able to figure out how to do the math. But I know for me, it helps me just a little bit when I'm trying to add up all of my groceries and see if I've got the budget for it, right? But I still do delight if something is 40% off. I love being able to figure out what that means in my own head, like about how much that would be. So I do like still doing some of it myself. Excellent. Thank you so much for all of your thoughts there, because thinking about this, it is exactly recognizing that sometimes we feel a little powerless when these technological things come our direction. That's recognizing just where that we really do hold the power in these situations. Today, we're going to talk about we're going to get a little bit of a context for what we mean by keeping the human at the center a little bit more. I have a cute analogy. That's of course my opinion, but it's a cute analogy for humanity and technology. And then an example also with a tech tool. So we'll give you some strategies, and then we'll give you an actual use with a tech tool as kind of a teaser to help prepare you for the next lunch and learn. So to give you just a little bit of more context for what we're talking about here, it is thinking about the world in which we live, where technology seems to be everywhere. I mean, it's in our classrooms, in our meetings, we're Zooming right now, it's even in our pockets. Sometimes I'll feel that phantom notification that it didn't really happen. I'll say, oh, did I hear a ding? You know, something like that, because it just becomes such a pervasive part of our lives. And it's exciting that we have those tools, but we have to think about who is still at the center of all of this. It's the humanity. It's our relationships. It's our ability to connect. Well, I've got a little analogy to share with you here. And in fact, it's story time. And the stars of our story are Sibley. Sibley's a horse. And Tractor Mac. You might guess from the name that Tractor Mac is a tractor. So we'll just be able to get into the story for you. Tractor Mac, and apparently there's a whole series of stories about Tractor Mac. So if you like this one, you can find many more about Tractor Mac. But this is the one where Tractor Mac arrives at the farm. And I'll tell you, the way I discovered this story is I was going through one of those literary paths in the woods, and sometimes they have the storybook pages on stands, and this is where I saw it. And this was in August. So this was at the very beginning of August. So this gives you an idea of how long I'm planning for these lunch and learns and thinking about them. And in fact, I had been planning it for a month and a half before then, but trying to figure out, okay, how could I drive this? How could I really think about this? And this showed up for me. So here's the story. Sibley the horse lived on Stony Meadow Farm, and he was a hard worker. Tug and pull, haul and drag. He did the work of 2 strong horses. Sibley's days were spent plowing in the spring and harvesting in the fall, logging in the winter. But his favorite job of all was when he was pulling the hay wagon at the summer picnics. The children would all cheer for Sibley, and they'd give him treats of apples and carrots. But one day, the animals heard a strange noise, chug, chugga, chugga, pop. And they all looked out of the barn, and a large red machine was parked in the farmyard, spewing smoke. Farmer Bill was seated on a bright, shiny new tractor, and he had a big smile on his face. So I'll tell you what I thought right at this moment. This is when my light bulb moment happened. I thought, oh, that tractor stands for, anybody guess?
Technology.
The horse.
Yeah, technology, AI, things like that. Exactly. Yes. That's what my thought was. I was like, oh, here we go. That evening, Farmer Bill moved the tractor into the barn, and the animals came over to greet the newcomer. "What big black rubber tires you have," said Carla the chicken. "Look at all of your wires and gears and cables," exclaimed Pete the pig. "Welcome to Stony Meadow Farm," said Sam the ram. The red tractor smiled. "How to do," he said. "My name is Mac. I can do the work of 10 horses, and I'm happy to be here." The animals gasped. 10 horses? You must be really strong. And as you might guess, that night, Sibley was not able to sleep. Visions of mechanical horses danced in his head. Could Mac really do the work of 10 horses? What would be left for Sibley to do? Who does Sibley represent?
The person.
Absolutely, the person, yeah. And for me, it was the instructor. But I do have to say, I thought, oh gosh, a talking tractor. I can't believe that the tractor talked in this story. But it does make sense later on. Early the next morning, Farmer Bill climbed into Mac's seat and started the engine. Mac rumbled to life, and they headed for the fields. Sibley waited to be tacked up for the day's work, but nobody came. And at this moment, I'm really sad, because that analogy that I was drawing is the technology, this is the teachers, and nobody came for the teacher. They're all excited about the technology. So I'm getting a little sad at this moment. And all that day, Sibley listened to the other animals chatter. "Did you see how fast Mac plowed the fields?" clucked the chickens. "He delivered the hay in less than an hour," baaed the sheep. "He hauled all the wood for the new roof," squealed the pigs. And as the days passed, it was clear that Mac had taken over all of Sibley's jobs. "Oh, soon they'll be turning you out to pasture," said Margot the cow. "You'll probably never have to work another day in your life." Now, not working for some people might sound really, really good. However, some people that doesn't sound so good. But this reminded me of, for instance, that viral little video of Bill Gates. "Oh yeah, this will replace teachers," things like that. So it was starting to make me think about those issues. Well, just then, Sibley heard the sound of children, and maybe they were coming to the barnyard for a hayride. He galloped out of the barn, but he stopped abruptly at the fence. There was Mac pulling a dozen cheering children in a hay wagon, Sibley's hay wagon. And Sibley had never felt so sad and useless in his whole life. What good is a workhorse who cannot work? And I gotta say, this is where I really, really was hoping that the story would go a different way. My heart dropped. I was very sad at this moment, and I was disappointed in the story arc because I wanted these children to be cheering for Sibley. See how they're reaching out? But they're cheering for this kid down here saying, "Catch up, catch up." So I really wanted them to be saying, we want Sibley, we want Sibley, but it didn't go that way. I'll tell you, spoiler alert, but it didn't go that way. In the weeks that followed, Sibley hoped that he would have a job to do. And every morning, Farmer Bill and Mac left the barn without him. And Sibley wondered if he had been forgotten for good. But finally, one day, Farmer Bill came back to the farm without Mac. Sibley, old lad, I need your help. We have a problem that only you can fix. Rain had fallen during the night. The farmer led Sibley through the soggy grass to a far field where the ground was soaked with water. There sat Mac, up to his axles in mud. So at this point, you have to resist the urge to say, I told you so. Technology would get stuck. It can't do everything, but you have to resist those urges. And with a tug and a yank, Sibley wrenched Mac free from the mud. So the instructor rescued education and carried it forward. Then he spent the rest of the day working in the soggy field while Mac sat behind the stone wall. When it was time to go back to the barn, Mac said, thanks for rescuing me, Sibley. So I gotta say, at least Mac was nice. At least the technology was nice about it. Farmer Bill patted Sibley on the neck. You were a big help today, he said. And I have a lot of things to say right now, but I won't say them about what that made me think. But from that day on, Farmer Bill let both Sibley and Mac work side by side, and they became the best of friends. So how do you feel at the end of this book, especially with the analogy we were just drawing? What does this make you think?
I think there's a learning curve for all of us as to what can be done, what expectations are realistic, and how to find our role with new technology.
I love hearing that, Kathy, finding our role or finding that partnership maybe between it. There's a learning curve there, but we can get there. I see humans and technology can work together, and I do see need to do so. So it's in our world. We can't really get rid of it, right? At least right now, it's there. And for students, it's best when the technology and the instructor work together. I like that also. It's important to see how they can be connected for the good of everybody. So there are promises in the partnership. There's the chance to make things better, easier. And I'll tell you, that was one of the focuses foci maybe, of my doctorate work was being able to evaluate technology and figure out when is it helpful, when is it just bells and whistles, when does it create more noise in the process, and when is it something that helps the instructor and the student move forward together. There was something else interesting in this book. They had the anatomy of a tractor, and we're able to show parts like you see there's a carburetor, there's a fuel tank pointed out in here. So I said, ChatGPT, let's make an analogy of technology, the anatomy of technology. So take a look at this. ChatGPT made this for me. And what do you think about what you see here? How do you react to this image that it created? What do you notice? I put the X on the engine for pedagogy powers learning because I didn't think that that was part of technology. So what do you notice about this chart? Anything?
I think you can make an analogy of each part of the tractor with technology. Who's going to steer it? How far it's going to go? With the gas tank, who's driving it? What those kinds of things. Who's going to promote it or shine the light on something else? So I think you can sort of make that analogy with each part.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and I'll say the way that I prompted it is I told ChatGPT I want to do this metaphorical study, and I gave it a couple of ideas. For instance, there's a steering wheel on a tractor that directs it. Can you help me with an analogy here? So I gave it a couple of examples, and then it came up with these other ones itself. I see the thought, well, it looks like maybe it almost looks like there could be two seats. I mean, maybe there's some strangeness that happening in the picture because ChatGPT doesn't really totally understand what a tractor might have to look like. But then there's also the comment that there's a human role for each part of those technological systems. There's some way that we play a role in every single thing of there. Did anyone notice any spelling errors, by the way? Because my English teacher passed, my reading teacher passed, went into it. I'm like, there's some spelling errors here.
Announcements under seat.
Announcements under seat. Yep. So the technology isn't perfect. I'd like to point out that the seat's kind of pointing to the back bumper also. It didn't really know where the seat was in the picture. It gave me a tractor picture, but it really didn't analyze the picture itself. So it helped me come up with a way to represent ideas that I had in my head, but I still need some intervention in this because it's not perfect just the way it is. Just like we ask our students, please don't look something up in ChatGPT and then copy and paste it, right? It's helping to recognize that, yeah, we might have to analyze this just a little bit too. I think it's funny that it spelled announcements wrong here by seat and it spelled them right here by horn, but attention is totally just left like, I don't know what to do with it. Okay, excellent. All right. So then it made me think, okay, well, what are the things that instructors bring to the classroom that technology can't provide? Can't do it.
Flexibility.
Ah, yeah. Technology often is not flexible.
Mhm.
What else do you mean? Can you add to that, Jill? Or
Well, just like, it had two seats.
Mhm.
So an instructor, could talk that through or fix, so that's being flexible. Say you have a lesson that has, some little quirky things in it. You explain that, whereas like that was set.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Anybody else?
The human touch, like the empathy and the things that when we talk with our students and we get to know them and, that back and forth sharing and really just, welcoming them and being kind of that warm face that they see. Technology can't do that.
Exactly. Thank you for adding that. Here's a strange thing, and I don't know, it might be getting off the course just a little bit, but I did hear about a career that someone can have that's a professional cuddler. Have you heard of this before? Because we have all this technology. I mean, we are the most connected we would ever be because I can talk to someone in Japan right now. I can have a conversation with them, right? I'm so connected. But if I'm only talking in front of my computer, I miss that human touch. And that's all they do. They just cuddle or they hold hands with someone and like people pay for that because they just are yearning for that human touch, that interaction. And it's really interesting to me that we would be at a point in our lives that might be something that someone would pursue or pay for, or that we could have a career in that. I mean, it just is interesting to me how we have this need. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Amber, because it's something that's important that we can have those very real connections with people and have some of those. And it doesn't always have to be face to face. It can be through Zoom, but you have to be really intentional about it. When you're in these online courses, you have to be super intentional about how you're connecting with your students, and the use of video helps a lot, a lot. So believe it or not, they had the anatomy of a horse. Of course, they would have had that in this book, right? So I thought that was kind of fun that they did that. So I played with it, a little bit of the anatomy of an instructor then. And I told it, I said, well, I want you to think about, how like the arms can be for active learning because, we're moving around and things like that. Or I suggested maybe the heart can be something that could be part of this analogy. And it said, oh, a passion for success. And I asked it to inject a little bit of humor. So it said things like student hours powered by caffeine, or something like that for the connection. But it was really kind of a fun way to have technology work with me to come up with some ideas. The spelling was a little bit better here. And the labeling maybe was, but for instance, the mouth is way down here, by the hip or whatever. So, I mean, it didn't quite get it right, but I also had suggested for it that it could have a pencil behind the ear or a watch for the time. And so in its description, it had even more things, but for the image, it just put just these 5 on it. So, it's an interesting way for us to think about how we could work with the technology to help us get our thoughts out, but then how we still have to monitor them to make sure that the technology interpreted it all correctly. So basically, how do we remind students that there is a human in the course? And I do hate to say it, I think we've all had those examples of a face-to-face course where it still didn't feel like we were being taught by a real human. They were kind of checked out and they just showed up for the class. So this means face-to-face, or it means online, or any combination thereof. How do we help our students know that there's someone in the course, a real person?
I mean, I do, for those online courses, discussion boards where we introduce ourselves and I participate in those, giving them feedback that's not just good job, like real constructive feedback to let them know, like, I am actually looking at this, even if it's something that's automatically graded, I follow up with them and let them know, like, hey, I am looking at this.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
I think too, when I'm grading papers in the online courses, I always write notes on their paper and maybe explain things a little more, or add an example, or add a follow-up reference that they might want to use. And I always do a summary of the week at the end to kind of clarify what they've done and encourage them to, keep moving forward.
Fabulous. And really trying to inject some more of that coaching in there too, even in the online situation, to give them some specific direct advice. I know that some people have talked about having comments that they give on papers. They have a little comment bank and say a Google Doc or a Word doc, something like that. And I've done that too, but generally I'll add a sentence either before it or after it, or a couple sentences. So if there's something that I tend to have to say, or I tend to give as feedback, I'll make sure that it's individualized to that student, so that they still feel seen and heard. And I give them just a little bit more beyond that. At least that's my goal, right? To help them feel seen and heard in the work that they're doing as well. And some comments in the chat also include ideas to which technology is applied, and to be able to respond promptly to student emails. When you say promptly, do you have an idea of what that means? Like what would be your estimate of promptly?
I would say within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good. And I think that that's one of the important things, that in that communication section of our syllabus, or even in something in our instructor page, or maybe even definitely making sure that we say it, that I'm endeavoring to respond to you within 24 hours, because we live in this immediate society where students are like, oh, she didn't respond to me in 2 seconds. Then, oh my gosh, they're ghosting me, something like that. We're recognizing that, it might take me 24 hours, but that is what I'm trying to do. And I've seen a couple, because I'm teaching a IDT GO1, and one of those is with the instructor page, editing that. And it's kind of neat, because people will be able to put in there, they'll say, I endeavor to answer you within 24 hours. If you find that I haven't, please message me again, in case I had missed your message, something like that, that it helps show that realness of the person too. I'm not perfect, so it's okay if you poke me again. It's okay. I'll respond to you. And it's okay for us to recognize our humanness too. I've got 3 things here, 3 ideas for you to help you with expressing your personality, engaging students in communication, and working on approachability too. That those are 3 really strong elements. There's other elements of maintaining humanity. These are 3 really, really strong ones. So injecting your personality into your course. This means maybe showing an introductory video on your bio page, or something that you've put into an email, or a link into an email, so the students can see you before the course even begins. And this can be a really special thing, especially if you, for instance, have a name that might be difficult for some people to pronounce. Like, I know Kathy's name, but I'm going to say it, and she might even say I'm wrong, and I think I know it from these 5 years I've known her. But Sokola, am I close? Yeah, okay. But for instance, some other students might see her name and go, Sokala? or even Jen's name, Robelin. I mean, maybe they Robelin, maybe they want to make it French, Robelin, you don't know. So being able to recognize how is this even said, it can alleviate some of that anxiety before they even get to you. Plus they can see you, they can see that I talk with my hands, they can see those kinds of things. And it doesn't have to be a long video and it doesn't have to be perfect. Students like it when it doesn't look studio ready. They like it when you're human. Now, of course, at the beginning when I was going, I don't know if this is if an icebreaker or if it's a warmer upper, I don't know. You could have that conversation in your video. Or if you feel like it detracts from what your real goal is for making those videos, you could edit it. But for the most part, students really want to see that you're human and that, if you say an or an it's okay. You don't have to edit those out. They'd rather feel that connection to you as a person. And I did see in the chat, people said real world experiences. And these are experiences from your own life too. And I'm not necessarily saying you have to divulge all your personal information. I'm talking about professional. They're looking at you. You're the expert in the field. You're there to teach them. They want to grow from your experiences too. And if you struggled with, for instance, yeah, I was never a big reader, but look at me. I'm the chair of the English department now. They'll say, oh, wow, or I'm meeting people through GO1, for instance, who said, I graduated from Delaware Tech and look at me, I've got my bachelor's and my master's, look how far I've come. That it helps them see, oh yeah, look at how far I can go. Look at what could be held in the future for me. What could be some ideas I could do. But you could share anecdotes about your weekend or interesting links that you found, current events that are going on. And again, helping to just share those bits and pieces of you. We talked about Bitmojis in the past, some pictures or things like that could add some things. We'll talk about being careful with humor, only because sometimes different cultures or different age groups might find different things funny. I used to coach Odyssey the Mind for my son, right? And we would talk about how humor gets you points. Humor does get you points, but you can't have fourth grade humor necessarily, because you had to have 40-year-old humor, because that was more of the average age of the judge, right? So they had to think it was funny. You couldn't just say something like, we were joking about it when we were practicing for this lunch and learn. And we were saying, oh, that's so sus. Well, that was a thing that was a few years ago, right? The kids all said that 40-year-olds would be like, okay, whatever. But kids would be dying laughing. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Ha, ha, ha. But it wouldn't get you any points, right? It wouldn't help you build that connection. So it's recognizing kind of your audience and realizing, okay, this is more universal humor. This is more my culture or my age group or, things like that. And recognizing kind of that fine line. So you do want to be careful with that. But these are ways of infusing your personality into your course to help maintain that humanity. Then we also have cultivating that engaging or empathetic communication style. So maybe you have some informal or some conversational tones in your course, in your materials that reflect your personality or the course's feel. Again, that humor thing, careful with that. Varying the style of how you communicate. Sometimes you have videos that are available. Sometimes you have graphics. Sometimes there's a little bit of audio. Kathy was talking about making sure she puts notes on the assignments. Maybe one of the assignments you can use the video there right inside of Brightspace and talk to them about what you read and kind of what you were thinking with their assignment that they completed. But it's also creating that space so students can do the same. They could provide a video to you that help them talk through their responses to your feedback. How cool would that be? That they show that they read your feedback by responding to your feedback? That would be kind of a neat thing to do. But making sure that you give some friendly comments too, and phrasing your feedback sometimes as questions or as something that gives them a reason to talk to you again, versus just more detail needed that's kind of vague or awkward here or something like that, giving them something that's actionable. And we had a really big conversation when we were talking about this talking about emojis. That you might use some emojis in what you're doing. But then we talked about kind of there's a fine line there. And I'm trying to remember, was it Jen or Christina who brought up the fine line?
Yeah, because like I brought up that balance between there was a while where instructors were encouraging students like to read over their emails carefully. And like, remember, this is a professional setting. So your email shouldn't include like a lot of emojis. Like it should have more professional tone. So kind of that in between of like where we can illustrate for them, where it's okay to have a more like relaxed tone, insert emojis, and where you might want to keep it a little bit more professional.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Jen. And really, and maybe, and so you have those transparent conversations. Here we are, we're just talking, but when you're doing a case study that will be put into a student's file, you need, in your example or in a nursing file, you're probably not using emojis in the nursing file, probably not, and helping them recognize the difference. And we also talked about how when people use ChatGPT for a lot of things, ChatGPT likes to put icons in there, little emojis icons, like little fingers pointing to the side or stars, things like that. Sometimes that's a dead giveaway that they use ChatGPT. So, I mean, there's some thoughts there as well. But again, it's recognizing, keeping that empathetic communication is listening to students' struggles. And I know when I've had the courses that I've been an adjunct for, sometimes it seems like you have so many sob stories. Sometimes you're kind of deciding, is this one real? Is this one not? But it's giving students kind of that space or that grace to say, you know what, a lot of things happen in people's lives, and I'll give as much flexibility as I can, and we'll be able to work through this together, and helping students feel like they have an ally in the course to the greatest extent that you can, and helping them recognize when deadlines have to be firm, or prior communication helps a lot. I had one student who told me 3 weeks in advance that she was going to miss the last week of class because she was going on a pilgrimage. But she told me way in advance. So we were able to adjust the coursework and adjust things so that she could get it done. And I was willing to give her an incomplete and let her do it afterwards. But she said, no, I'd rather get it done beforehand so that then I have it all done. And it worked beautifully. But it's helping students also recognize that professionalism, communicate early as you can. Recognizing emergency happens. But if you know that you have surgery coming up, or your child has surgery coming up, and you're just not going to be in the right mind space to finish this assignment, let's figure out what adjustments we can make. All right. And then the third thing, approachability. It's trying to be present in that same way through giving maybe those small interactions. I loved that Amber was saying that she responds inside of the discussion board for her students. And especially when I'm adjuncting, that first discussion board, maybe the first two, I'm responding to everybody. And then after that, I'm responding to a few in the third discussion board. And then I respond to a few different ones in the next discussion board. And maybe the next discussion board, I'm responding to a few different ones. So it's helping them feel heard. And a lot of times I'll refer them to someone else. So I'm still looking at them all, but I'm responding. I'm taking the time to respond to just a few. And I'll say, hey, you might want to check out Pauline's post because she was saying similar things. Or, wow, Amanda had something that really was different from what you're saying. It'd be neat to compare those two. And you help refer them to other people's, so they're more likely, it doesn't make it perfect, but they're more likely to look at their peers as well. And it gives them just that little sense of kudos. I don't know about you, but I love getting a sticker on my test. Boom, there's my sticker, there's my reward, that kind of thing, that little recognition. So being approachable is also being that visible, that active in your course. So you're participating in those discussion boards, you're sending the text, maybe, or you're writing things. Like Kathy said, she writes on their actual work. So it's not just over on the side. She gives them those little anecdotes on their actual work, or annotations on their actual work, to show them, yes, I interacted with your paper. You can arrive early to class, same thing for Zoom, a few minutes early or stay a few minutes late. It doesn't mean an hour. I know I had some students who wanted to keep me a whole hour. It doesn't mean that. But if they know that you're going to be there for 10 or 15 minutes, I've got 10 or 15 minutes, then they will recognize that they have that opportunity to connect with you. And virtual student hours can be really helpful for your students who can't make it to class or make it to campus. If you're able to hold those for them, or a combination of in-person and virtual, that can help meet the most needs of your students. All right. Now, to process this, because we talk about active learning and to process, and I threw a lot at you, we're going to have a Padlet. So you can say something that you do to infuse your personality, or something for engaging communication, or something that helps make you approachable. For instance, some people provide Google Voice so that they can receive text, but the students don't have their real number, that kind of thing. And you can click on the little plus sign. You can select the plus that's right underneath that column. Or if you use this one in the corner, you can do that and assign it to a column. I see something that turned up. I add funny images related to my topics in my PowerPoints. Excellent. How do you find them, Leanne?
Yeah, generally, the best ones I have are, I'm in the dental hygiene program, and we have clinical photographs of the oral cavities of patients that the students have to take to document conditions. But anyway, so if I see something, there's teeth that, I have a tooth that looks like a Jimmy Durante kind of thing. So I try to add humor. It's not at the expense of the patient, but
Yeah.
nobody knows who it is or anything like that. But I just try to.
Yeah. Just inject just a little bit of humor in.
Little humor, gotta have some humor. Yeah.
You were talking about dental hygiene. It made me think about if you had one that had, I don't know, a big cavity in it, that you might show a pickaxe over it or something like that too. I don't know.
Yes. Or some, like jokes that people have sent me.
Yeah.
To them too.
Well, that's fabulous.
And I love the don't be afraid to show your excitement over a question or topic or problem, because absolutely, like there are subjects that I personally have very little interest in, but because the teacher was so enthusiastic about it, I paid attention and like I retained that information because I was just like that excitement was transferable. And I'm like, okay, like seems pretty cool.
That's fabulous. Yeah, it's contagious. The energy, the enthusiasm you bring is contagious. Oh, I love this idea too. I get pictures of me doing things I love, like bike riding, cooking, reading, reading with my pets. There's a comma there though, Jill. I know there is, but I just thought that was fun. And you put them all together. Do you do a collage or a video? You said video, so I didn't
So
know.
it's something I want to do, and isn't there a way I can have still pictures in a video that just plays like that?
Absolutely.
I said I'm not quite sure somehow, so I'm going to figure that out. There's
Yeah.
people around me that know how to do fun things, but I
Yes.
thought that just a real short clip, they could watch it and get to know me a little bit that way.
Yeah, it's fabulous. You can make some of those in Canva and
Canva.
other
Okay.
locations like that. And if you need any support with that, let us know.
Okay.
I'd love to help you.
'Cause my bio is so boring right now, and it's been like that for years. This is a
I'm sure
great
you-
way, a good
I'm sure
time.
you feel that way. Oh, that's fabulous. I love that you have that idea, Jill. I love that you have that idea. If you need any help bringing it to reality, let us know. Yay. Excellent. Tell them up front that you want to hear from them because that's how you want to start that engaging conversation. Encourage texting. Yeah, Google Voice, it's a way that you could get a text, but students don't have your actual phone number. So some people like that separation for that. Leanne, I like the idea of putting questions in during presentations. Other things besides any questions, right? Yeah. And ask them if they find additional information or resources. Exactly, Kathy. And then maybe they give you something that you want to put into future classes because it's so good. They can help you find some of these resources. Beautiful. And Kathy gives them her email so that they have another way to contact her, and offering to stay later to talk to students if you can, and responding to students for face-to-face meetings if they would like to be able to make that connection with you. I love these ideas. I think one of the things that I do, and I think I was trying to decide which category it really fit into because it's a little bit personality and it's a little bit being approachable, but teaching face-to-face, I'm never behind that lectern. I'm always wandering around the classroom, and I do it on purpose for a few reasons. I mean, one, for me, I like to walk around. I don't want to just stand in one place anyway. But two, because then their attention, it's a psychology thing. Their attention is shifting which side of the room I'm on, which location I'm in. So it helps them wake up again as I'm talking. And I like to be closer to everyone. So I use some of that proximity as I'm walking around, and I can actually look at people, look them in the face, or, nod them or use their name because we talked about something. And but I'm trying to decide, do you think that's approachability, engaging communication, or do you think that's infusing personality? How would you rate that wandering around the classroom like that? Where would you put that?
I think engaging.
Engaging. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And in communication. Yeah, Jen agreed with you. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll still be here for a little bit if you have any questions or any conversations you'd like to have. But other than that, I hope that you do enjoy your lunch today. Have a wonderful time.